Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to the Art of Badassery. I'm Mahara Wayman, and my guest today is Jessica Erlendson van Remmen. With a Bachelor of Arts in Anatomy, Physiology, Pathology, and Psychology, and over 900 hours of yoga training, Jessica has focused on peri and postmenopause care since 2019. She runs a Canadian support group, CPMS, with nearly 9,000 members. Growing up in the 70s with a jazz musician father and a self-educated hippie mother, Jessica dreamed of being a musician herself. A near-death experience, however, in her late 30s, shifted her focus to health and wellness. So she became a certified yoga therapist at 49 and founded CPMS in 2021 to support women through perimenopause. Jessica designs yoga classes, workshops, and events to help women transition into their next stage of life with dignity and with hope. Jessica, I can't tell you how excited I am to have this conversation because I'm one of those women. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. That was great. It was great, very thorough introduction.
Well, I got the information from you, so thank you for that. You know, often I interview people and they have a degree in something, in one thing. They've studied one thing, and we talk about one thing, maybe two things. But there's a lot of things that you have obviously have a deep interest in. And can you just take us a little bit back to the journey of when that started? It may be even before the health scare in your 30s, but when did this all start, this real fascination with knowing?
Well, I think it's because of my parents. When my mom was very curious and my dad was a genius, and they were really like, let's go to the library about everything instead of just being, well, life sucks. Although there was that part too, right? Because life is hard. But we have the opportunity to learn, and information really is free if you are, careful about how you go about getting it, right? So, um, instead of having the idea that how we are is a problem, it was like how you are is how you are. And you get to learn how to manage your strengths. So as I grew up, I was always drawn to music and naturally good at music. And I still teach music and I love music and it's a big part of my life. But, if you don't have health and wellness, you really can't enjoy music or anything. That sort of needs to be like a foundational level in our lives. And, I was always really drawn to the spiritual side of things as well because my parents were meditators. So my mom was into yoga and my dad was very into science. So they liked transcendental meditation is a sound meditation. So there's a sound and then you repeat that sound. You have your own seed mantra. And I remember sitting with them while they were meditating when I was little and just observing how it changed the way that they related to each other. And then when my mom died, I ended up in a yoga session with the meditation leader. And it was just it was still hard, don't get me wrong, but it was a very natural place for me to just be sitting with people working on our own internal meditation. And from there, I wanted to do yoga teacher training, but I already was teaching music and I had two kids, and I know another hobby job didn't seem like the wisest move at that time. And then when I had my health crisis, it really sort of opened up this whole other reality of alternative healing. What is there in the alternative land? Because the medical and go see your doctor. I'm not saying skip your doctor, never skip your doctor and do the testing they advise you to do. However, for me, with what I had, they could keep me alive, but they couldn't make me well. So I really needed to dig in. And I've been supported through all kinds of, different alternative therapies and, chiropractors and acupuncturists and naturopathic doctors and you name it, I've tried it. And then when I started weight training in my 40s, my personal trainer said, you can do anything that you want. You're stronger than you think. And I started to believe that, even though I still had this condition. And I did yoga teacher training and then right away realized that I wanted to help people more in like not just from an exercise standpoint, but from the holistic point of your whole life and what's working for you and not working for you. And then right around that time, my perimenopause symptoms started to go through the roof. And it just seemed like a natural thing to do, take that information and all the stuff that I learned at school and apply it to perimenopause and postmenopause. And I started the group because I felt really lonely. I think we talked about that,
We
it's
did.
like some of the symptoms are weird and they're scary maybe. And, not everybody, it's not necessarily dinner conversation or some people don't want to talk about it at all. So I started the little group thinking, I'll just invite my girlfriends and their friends. So everybody knew everybody. And then, really, really quickly, we were at 100 women. And with my minor in anthropology, I know that we can only really care about 100 people. So once you added bigger, more people, you end up necessarily having to deal with some people that are not nice, which is hard. But I decided it was worth it because I really feel for that woman who goes to the doctor, does all the testing, everything comes back normal. They're told that they're fine, and they leave and sit in the car crying because they know that something is wrong and something isn't fine, and they've just been dismissed. And I want to be, that guiding light, that voice. They need someone who's going to say, no, no, you're not crazy. That's actually happening. And it's part of perimenopause and you're not alone. And I just had someone this morning who had left the group because she felt overwhelmed with the anxiety, because anxiety, we have a lot of that. And she came back in. She wants back in because she realized that she needs the support of the other women
Mm.
just to hear the stories and know she's not alone.
Can you share why, your opinion on why it is that we, because we're of the same age, we weren't taught this. Nobody, only now I feel are we as a society talking about the fact that women even have periods. When I was a little girl, like, or a young woman, oh my God, it was an embarrassment, or I felt that way. You hid the Kotex, you hid the tampons, you didn't talk about it. And then I have children, girl children, and they in this generation they talk about it all the time. It's no big deal with their male friends, their gay friends. Everybody talks about it, and I'm like, wow, this is so great to hear. But
Mm.
why has it taken so long? And now that I'm menopausal, nobody really talks about that. I mean, we do online now. Of course, there's groups just like you're doing, which is beautiful. But as I was growing up, even just just out hanging with friends, this doesn't seem to come up unless somebody's brave enough to do that. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think it has to do with patriarchy. Down with patriarchy
Oh, yeah.
and also sexual shame. That we're just ashamed to talk about periods and you can't talk about, especially perimenopause. You don't have to talk about your period. Because that's usually a marker of the period changing. And I think that women in general, we kind of we're gonna go along and we want everybody to get along and we want to be compliant and we want to be good and we want to be seen as helpful and friendly and loving and um this stuff is so disruptive and like I had the same experience. My friends didn't want to talk about it. Well, they wanted to talk about the symptoms they were having, but when I said that's perimenopause, they would say, no, it's not because my doctor didn't say that. But the doctor had ruled out every other cause, right? So it's probably perimenopause. And I kind of feel like we're at a place of reckoning. They talk about the pendulum swinging, right? And now we're like going to talk about everything. And you can just like it or lump it, but that's why it is really important to have places where women can connect with other women that want to talk about it in a way that's respectful and loving and kind. Like one of the things that we do, well, first off, I have experience running support groups. I volunteered with Al-Anon, which is family members and friends of alcoholics. It's a 12-step program. I did that for over a decade, and I learned all about how to participate and to run a support group. So I'm able to take all of those skills into CPMS. And I do run it like a recovery group, but I don't talk about that. It's just there. It's just embedded in
Okay.
it. And like that gives them the chance to say, for example, one of our moderators is really, you know, positive. She does not want any hormone therapy. Like the hormone therapy is a no for her. And in a lot of group settings, I might not want her in the group or moderating for the group because she has that strong opinion. Whereas in a real support group, you're allowed to have your opinion. You're allowed to feel how you feel. You're allowed to have your own experience. You're allowed to have your own values. And our job is to support you in that. So if you want to avoid taking any hormone therapy, there are a lot of things that you can do. But one of the things we don't do is tell other people what they should be doing. So this is a lot of like corrections that go on. Every so often people get kicked out of the group, or I'll put them in Facebook jail where they can't post for a while. And then we have a discussion about what exactly the difference is between, like, this is what I said to a lady recently. It's not an I'm right group. It's a support group.
Right. It's a really important
Yeah,
distinction
it's
because
very different.
sometimes I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think sometimes we join groups. I include myself in that because I want more people to speak the way I do, or to agree with me. So I want to be in a group that we all agree.
Hmm.
But where did I where did I see this? I saw something recently. I think it was on a YouTube channel that you need to be willing to disagree because that's how we learn,
Yeah.
right? You have to be open to the conversation because that's how we learn. And so thank you for that distinction of your group. And I think one of the challenges that I've seen as I enter or as I live as a menopausal woman is because the hormones affect, correct me if I'm wrong, but every component of our body. When the hormones die away and they change, we don't know exactly what part of our body is going to be affected. So there's such a huge range of um, consequences, or there's such a huge range of challenges that we may not realize they all fall under the umbrella of menopause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I just want to talk about the achy joints. Yeah, who cares if you can't sleep? Achy joints here, baby. Right? Achy joints. Drink before you go to bed. That's how I fall asleep. Not really, but anyway, so I digress. Lots of
Yeah.
different challenges for the menopausal woman for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Um,
agree with that. Like if you want, that's one of the values of having it as an actual support group is if you want to talk about your achy joints and that's all you want to talk about, you can do that. You don't have to chime in on anything else. You can just go in and ask your questions. And this came up a little bit when we were around like 2,000 people and we started to see the same question asked again and again and again, even in the same day. And the moderator and I at that point only had one. Now I have three other people helping me. We decided that for her, that person, that question is burning on her mind.
mm,
She needs to know that she's not alone. So it doesn't matter if it's been asked 100 or 50,000 times before. Let's post it, let's share it, and give people the opportunity to chime in again if they want. And what's happened in the culture in the group has really grown to that we have like a core membership of women who've gone through their own process of how they're managing their symptoms, some of them with hormone replacement therapy, some of them with other prescriptions, and some of them with no prescriptions, who support anybody who shows up saying that even if they've asked that question, they just answered it later, yesterday or the day before. And they get to now chime in as experts because they're sharing from their own experience. You can't
mm,
be wrong about your own experience.
right.
And that feels
Well,
great.
how it's incredibly powerful to allow someone or to have someone recognize that they have been seen. And I
Mhm.
firmly believe it's one of the most important components of being human is our desire, our need to be seen. And especially in the tough times, especially when we don't understand what's going on in our world. I keep thinking of that song from Tommy, See Me, the Who put out that, probably 19 early 70s or late 60s. see me, feel me, touch me. Like I need to be recognized as a person that matters. And it can be very difficult for women in this stage because not to put all men in the same bucket, but they know even less than we do. Right? So when you turn to your husband and you're like, you know what? I'm not feeling so good for X, Y, and Z. And my husband's go-to response is, well, did you work out today? Maybe you should just go for, you need to stretch. Right now, I'm struggling with my hip. And you need to stretch. I'm like, I could stretch till the cows come home. My joints, it's just, we're talking a different language here, but he knows, just doesn't know. And I don't know that much either. So yeah, it can be tough to be seen.
And it can be hard for men. I sympathize with their plight because I have a great relationship with my husband. I'm incredibly fortunate in that we are communicating with each other well. He was my bass player. He was in my band. That's how we met.
Nice.
And then fell in love and been together over 25 years. But when I felt like I had felt that I had told him what was going on, and then he was clearly not understanding what I had said by his behavior. I could tell that he doesn't care. His behavior is showing that he doesn't care. I know that's not true. So that means somehow the miscommunication has happened. But because my parents taught me, you're having a problem, get curious, get interested, see what's going on, ask a lot of questions. So I started asking him, like, so I said this to you about, like for your example of hip pain. And yet I'm still, expected to go and walk the dog. And you know that I've been sitting on the couch for the last hour, icing on and off, trying to deal with my hip. So where is the disconnect? Like, where do you not understand that I'm actually in pain? How can I explain that to you in a way? So he started talking to me about different ways of communicating with men. Like if you can find a way to make it real for them. And he's not really a sports guy, but the one that we came up with that's really handy to keep in mind is if you can talk about being on a team. Men understand being on a team, and they understand that the marriage is a team, and they understand that you have to work together to make that work. They also understand injuries such as pulled hamstrings and sprains that are not visual, right? You can't see it, but it doesn't mean you're not injured. And if you put that player into the regular game, now you've set your team back because your star player is re-injured or injured even more because you expected too much of them in the current condition. You have to give them that time to heal. And so that's been really valuable. And he said, I said, would you like to come into the group and talk to the men, right? So because we have some men in the group, would you like to do some YouTube stuff and talking to the husbands? And he said no. And I said, why not? And he said, because my message would be up your game, guys. Your lady needs you. Up your game. You're not cutting it. You're not cutting it man-wise if you're not supporting your wife. And none of those guys that aren't cutting it man-wise are going to be happy to hear that because, they're used to doing things in a certain way and the adjustment means something else is going to be expected of them, which is hard for anybody when the expectations change. But yeah, I mean, not talk about not being educated, right? Not only are we not educated about what's happening with ourselves, but we really don't have any education around how to communicate with the people around us about what kind of condition we might be in. Because I don't know about you, but for me, everything changes day to day and I have to just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many reasons why it's a challenge for us to speak our truth. And I mean, for years, I had aches and pains, and I always had an answer for it. It was either because I was overweight, shame on me, or I didn't stretch long enough before my last run because I've been athletic most of my life. Really, I'm only now am I experiencing real physical challenges. But I always had an excuse. It never occurred to me to question and get a little bit more clarity on the little aches and pains I would have throughout the day or throughout the month. I would just put it down, oh, that's just what happens being a girl. You know what I mean? Like I just was really lazy. I'm going to be totally honest. I was just freaking lazy. And honestly, it's not until now, as I'm nearing 60, that I'm like, wow, all that wasted time. If I could have figured out back then what what to expect, it wouldn't have come as such a shock. Because I'll be honest, despite my education, my 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 support system, great family. I've lived around the world. I can speak a couple, well, I can't really speak a couple languages anymore. I've forgotten a lot. But you know what? I got my shit together. When
Mm.
menopause hit, I was like, what's that? What? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And even when I asked the question, I didn't do much other than say to my doctor, I think I'm in menopause. I don't really know what that means. Whereas now, when something interests me, like you said, I'm Googling it, I'm asking questions, I'm joining groups, but I'm like, it feels sometimes like it's too little too late, which is not, I'm doing myself a disservice. That's a bit of a story as well. But um, before you got into this, I want to go back to some earlier badassery that you've experienced. You had a band. You have a band. What was that? You said earlier he was part of my band when you met your husband.
Oh yeah, well, I'm a dyslexic, so going to school was terrible for me. And in high school, I always did band and choir.
Okay.
And that was kind of like my cookie to get me to go to school because I had early morning rehearsal almost every day when you're in two different things. Um, but then I was told I had to pick one or the other in grade 11, and I was just devastated because I love playing instruments and I love singing. I was playing flute in the band, and it was an award-winning concert band. And so to pick one or the other, I picked singing because singing was my first instrument, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough early morning rehearsal to get my butt to school. And the teacher that I had was probably the first music teacher I'd ever had that didn't acknowledge my talent because he wanted me to sing soprano, which I was able to do. That's the really high voice,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not my natural voice. I'm naturally an alto. I have a little bit of a lower voice. So he wanted me to sing full voice with a lot of power up high. And I can't do that. I can sing those high notes, but it's all head voice. So he thought I wasn't a good singer. And all my transcripts of all my training didn't come with me because my mother was alcoholic. And when I moved from Toronto to Calgary, it wasn't done properly. The transfer didn't happen correctly. So none of
Okay.
my records came with me. So I wasn't getting any help for the dyslexia, and school was just a nightmare. So I dropped out of school and started singing in bars because my dad was a musician and I knew musicians and there was something that I could do. And I've put out many albums and sung on other people's recordings and done flute solos for people. And I did that and had a couple kids and got out of two different toxic marriages along the way because I'll pick something up quickly and then I'll dump it just as quickly if it's not for me. And say what you will about that. I got a lot of criticism for that, but the truth of the matter was those matches were not good matches for me. And my personal opinion on that was if it's not good for me, it's not good for my kids, period. I don't care
Okay.
about stuff.
Can I jump in? So first of all, I want to say high five. Yeah, that's rock on.
That's
But
bad.
if they weren't for you, what was the lesson in it? Do you think?
There was a lot of lessons, but like the main one probably was you can't do anybody else's personal work for them. Right.
Mm,
I'm really interested in personal development. I kind of always have been. Like my sister would say, I was a seeker. I was kind of born a seeker. I was always asking questions. I was always reflecting. I was always interested and curious. And the people that I got interested in, they liked that about me, but I think they felt that I was going to do their work for them. Well, I know with the first husband, that's what he told me, right? You were going to do it for me. And I was like, I can't do that for you, man. You got to do that for yourself. But the kids turned out all right and everybody survived. But I don't think that I had a lot of support. Like I'm leaving now. It was 1992 when that baby was born. The world was different than it was in the 70s for a woman in Canada trying to get out of a toxic relationship. The government basically said, you don't want to be in that marriage? Okay, we'll help you. And I was able to go back to school and get my high school and have another baby and then realize I didn't want that relationship either and get out of that relationship and get into the relationship that I really wanted with someone who respected me as more than a trophy and was interested in my well-being, my overall well-being. He's interested in not just, what can I do for him or
yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I don't really know why those men were interested in me, but I did say to both of them at a different time, why did you pick someone who's like, I'm always doing stuff. If you're not going to keep up, then you're going to feel bad about yourself. It's not my fault though. I have to do what I have to do. And I went back to school and got a jazz diploma and started teaching music lessons. And then I got sick and then I started doing more yoga. And then I ended up doing what I'm doing now, which is like everything has this therapeutic bend to it. So if I'm teaching a music lesson, I'm teaching that person from that lens of how can I support them as a whole person, not just how can I get them to play that scale, but
Mm.
how can I help them to become a happy, healthy, whole, complete, feeling good about themselves, able to conquer the challenges in their lives. I say it's music lessons as life lessons. And then for the women in perimenopause, they just need someone to listen to them. And I've had so much experience now helping these ladies for the last 3 years that I've become very familiar with what's available and what might work and what might be going on for them. And so I can guide them in a way. And my clients are reporting up to 80%, feeling 80% better in 4 to 8 sessions. Most of them graduate after 6 months and then they literally don't need me anymore because they've designed a program, like they're following the program that I've
Yeah.
designed for them, and it works.
So I want to just touch on what I think is a pretty important component of being a badass, because of course this show is called The Art of Badassery. And that is, number one, get curious about what fills your cup.
Hmm.
And number two, honor that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're doing that. Like all along the way, you've recognized what you love and you found a way to have that in your life and moved with it and sort of taken it with you to the next stage of learning or growth. So part of being a badass, guys, is just acknowledge what you love, right? And if you're very fortunate, you will do what you love and you will find a way to make it work and earn a living from it. Because I mean, I'm very realistic. We live in Canada. I have a mortgage, I've got responsibilities, and we all do. And sometimes what we are passionate about and what we love takes a while to figure out how to make it, find that balance. But I do think, and I hear it with many of my guests, is one day they woke up and went, you know what? I really love this. For whatever reason, this really fills my cup. So it sounds like you've been doing that for a long time. But yeah, so tell us a little bit more about where you are today. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
I think I've finally fully embraced that I am a dyslexic. I'm neurodivergent. I think differently than the average person. I'm much more interested in solving problems than I am in complaining. However, I do probably complain every day along with everybody else. But I don't enjoy that state of mind. So as I've studied that psychology, I realize what we feed, the wolf that we feed is the wolf that will grow. So I want to feed the wolf that is confident and calm and willing to try and maybe willing to try again and again, different ways about going about solving whatever problem comes up. And I think I'm in a really unique place because I have such a no, like I've always sort of known myself. I followed my nose as far as what my gifts are. That's from my parents too, right? So at one point with my dad, I was really upset that my sister was doing well at school and I couldn't do well at school. And I ran out the door and he came running after me and grabbed me and said, "What is going on with you?" And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I'm never going to be good at school. That's just the way that it is. And he said, don't compare yourself to your sister. You guys are different. You have your own skills. Like, being able to make friends easily is a talent. It's something that comes naturally to you. Your sister doesn't have that. You can focus more on your strengths and build yourself an incredible life. And we have a different expectation for you. So for you, we're happy with C's and D's because we know that, you're doing the best that you can. We understand that. And then when I was finally diagnosed as dyslexic, that all started to make sense. That's why I couldn't do it because that didn't happen until I was in junior high. And then I learned all about how my brain works and all these little things that I could do to make things a little bit easier. But, with that basic skill set, she's good at music and making friends. Well, look at what I do. I make friends with people online and I help them with whatever it is that they're going through as much as I possibly can by being a good friend, a supportive person who's interested in their well-being. And I incorporate music with all of my coaching clients, by the way. Like music is a part of everything that I do. And then I do the music lessons and I write songs and I help people write songs. Right now, I've got a 77-year-old woman who is preventatively working with cognitive decline because it's in her family. She knows it could be potentially an issue. It's not an issue for her right now, but her doctor said, if you can get back into playing the piano, that would really help you. And because I know what I know, we're working with songwriting because it uses most of your brain. She's going to use her memories. She's going to talk in reference and she's going to use all the theory and she's going to put it together. She has to write it out. It has to become a thing. Then she has to memorize it. She has to play it. She even sings along, you know, it's amazing. It's an incredible gift. So, because I've had a few people say, I had a business coach that was like, no, you should really pick. You're either doing coaching clients in perimenopause and postmenopause or music. And I was like, I can't do it, man. Like it's not, even if I said, okay, I'm not going to pursue music anymore. I'm singing all day and I'm writing little songs. Like let's just be honest about it and use it as a strength. And so I feel like I'm incredibly blessed and I've never had so much stability in my life as I have now with my partner. We've been together over 25 years and we just bought a house last year. And so we've really set it up nicely for things like this to do podcasts. But this is also a vocal booth and a studio that we can record music in. And there's no need to, I was never going to fit in the box. I guess that's probably the point of the whole thing. When I was a kid, I realized I was never going to be a thing where you could say, this is what Jessica does. Because I couldn't do math and I couldn't read. And I was a terrible writer. And I couldn't, hold those thoughts in my head long enough. I could talk all day and I was a good listener. So I knew I was going to have to design something else for myself and then not have attachment to it, right? Bring in those elements that you love, but not have attachment to how it looks. Because when I first started teaching music, I had a few people say, well, real musicians do music and people who can't do it teach. And I was like, that's not. Mozart was teaching, you guys. Mozart was begging for work to teach because it's steady work. And my dad had students the whole time I was growing up and even well into his 70s and 80s even. So, it's a weird theory that we have that's actually, I don't know why we have so much just embedded in our society that just makes
Oh,
people feel like crap about themselves.
that's, you know what, we could talk about that all day, but there are so many things that we have accepted as truth, which are just bullshit.
Hmm.
And that little phrase is one of them, people that can't do teach. I mean, what a load of crap, right? And it's so interesting because I had a guest on recently who is a coach now, but years ago she really developed her artistic side. And she felt that she never really, and one of her quotes was, I never saw myself as being an artist because I didn't live it, dream it, and study it like real quote artists did. I just kind of took it for granted. She just took her talent for granted. So she never really thought of herself as being a painter or an artist. And yet she is incredibly talented. And so it's interesting whether it's creative writing or musical instruments or singing or artwork, whatever. I personally think that we all have a talent, or some of us have many talents. Unfortunately, often they're poo-pooed or they're just not recognized or they're not developed. And I think, first of all, what a gift that your parents gave you. The gift of curiosity is brilliant, right? I mean, that's a huge component of my coaching is I encourage my clients to get really curious, like, okay, why did you say that? Why did that trigger you? What's going on? And then they'll tell me a story and I'm like, okay, but what's really going on? And they're like, no, 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 that's what's going on. I said, okay, but what's underneath that? We sit and whatever. There's lots of ways of getting to the truth, but curiosity is one of the most beautiful things, gifts, I think, that we can gift ourselves. Either curious about what you love, even what you don't love, about the world around you, about why you feel the way that you do. And, because the goal of being badass, well, I guess it's different for everybody, but for me, it really is to be very cognizant of who I am in the world and to own it with grace and pride. right? And to just keep moving forward because I am the master of my ship, right? I do I do have a choice in everything that I do. Okay, so I got a little sidetracked there, got excited.
No, I totally get it. 100% agree.
I'm also totally excited that you're only 3 hours south of me. Like we live close to each other, guys. I chat with people all around the globe. And when Jessica said, yeah, I am in Calgary, Alberta, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh,
So great to chat to a fellow Canadian. What are some of the things that you would like to share with us that you haven't yet? Tidbits, stories,
mhm.
aha moments. The floor is yours.
Yeah, particularly in the area of perimenopause and postmenopause, your doctor might not understand what's going on and you feel like they say gaslighted, but they're not gaslighting you because they don't know. Gaslighting is when they know, but they're
Mm,
withholding the information or they're moving your keys so you can never find your keys. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to mess with you. Your doctor's not trying to mess with you. They just don't know. Like here's a good example. So a lot of people in perimenopause have abnormal bleeding. It's kind of a hallmark symbol of like this is what to expect. It happens a lot all the time. But what I found out from my gynecologist is every woman who has abnormal bleeding should be offered a uterine biopsy, but it's not trained with your family medicine doctor. You have to go to a specialist to get that. And she said it's so frustrating for her because it's not any more difficult than doing a pap smear. You just have to know how. And the training is not hard. And it could be saving a lot of lives because if you think about like for me, okay, I got a referral to a gynecologist which got lost. And then we went back and did it again 6 months later. It also got lost. And then, 6 months later, I was like, okay, so I need to see a gynecologist because I have abnormal bleeding and I want to make sure that I'm safe and that I know what's going on. And then I had a functional medicine doctor who's extra billing, which also makes me mad. Not that she's charging extra, but just that you have to sometimes pay to get the right information. And she said, oh, go to Canmore. There's a couple gals that set up a gynecology. Yeah, right. And there's a hospital in Canmore and they're great. And you can get in a matter of months. So yeah, you know what? Drive to Canmore from Calgary. Like that's not a big deal. And it's beautiful. And I say now in my group all the time because women will be like, well, abnormal bleeding is normal in perimenopause. And it is part of perimenopause for a lot of women, and it's not necessarily a sign of trouble. However, the cancers they're terrible at finding and diagnosing are ovarian cancer because it's internal and they can't really know for sure what it is unless they do surgery, and uterine cancer kills women all the time because nobody actually looks. And the test is like zoop zoop, honestly, like 30 seconds maybe. And then mine came back and we're all good. There's some fibroids in there and but nothing of concern. And she put me on a different kind of a pill that helped to stop the periods. And so things are moving in the right direction. But if you look at that, like if I didn't have that sense of being determined and bringing it up again and bringing it up again, and I had just waited and left it, I would be still having disruptive, painful, and, heavy periods that are interfering with the quality of my life. So it's terrible because you're in rough shape, right? Let's acknowledge that this woman has been bleeding maybe a lot, or she's having sweats, or she's, having nausea, or she's having headaches, or she's, or maybe all of that. That's the time you have to go to the doctor and be more insistent. You can't just be like, oh, I'm not sleeping well. Oh, yeah, that happens because they will say, yes, that happens. See you in 6 months. All your blood work came back normal. That's not good enough. And it has to come from you. So sometimes I'll have women be like, well, how am I supposed to do that? Right. My iron is low from bleeding so high. Like I've had so much bleeding that now my energy level is really low. Where am I going to come up with that fire to confront the doctor and really start getting in their face a little bit in a gentle, kind, loving way, get in their face that you are the patient and you are telling them that you need more help. I just say, pretend that you're your own daughter. If your daughter came to you and said, I've been bleeding, like, and honestly, some of these women are saying for 60 days. Is that too much? I'm like, oh, yay, yay, yay. Are you kidding me? Yes. What I always say is if you think your regular period was 7 days, if you're bleeding for twice as much, that's 14 days. That's already too much. Twice as much is too much. That's a lot. So you're already way overdue. And, but as soon as I say that, what would you say if it was your sister or your daughter or your best friend? What would you say to them? What would you say if I told you that I'd been bleeding for 39 days? You wouldn't say, go to Walmart, buy some more pads,
Yeah,
you,
completely different story.
yeah, it's a different story. So we have to start standing up for ourselves as if our human body is our best friend's body. How would we treat our best friend or our daughter or someone else that we love? Well, we sure as hell wouldn't put up with that crap. If your 16-year-old daughter came to you and said, I've been having a period for 3 weeks, you would be taking them to the doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would be insisting that they something for that, not just send them home and see what happens. And you'd want to know why. And they'd be scared of you because you'd be in your fierce mom mode. And so hopefully I'm hopeful that as women start insisting a little bit more on the care that they're getting and the education keeps coming down the pipes and people start learning and talking more about it, that the average GP will start to understand that they do need more training and there are people they can refer their patients to, and that just telling them it's part of growing older and that it's normal. It's just not good enough. I mean, there's certain things where, yeah, okay, they're less disruptive symptoms that you can probably not worry about, like extra dry skin. It's not going to hurt you. But if you're having chronic UTIs, that's treatable. And they'll tell you it's part of perimenopause or menopause. And that's when, the group comes in and says, ask for estrogen cream. It stays in the vagina. It's not going to get in your whole system. It's perfectly safe, but it does prevent chronic UTIs and treats a lot of our um, sexual dysfunction.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that drives me around the bend is this go-to response of, well, that's just what happens. You're getting old.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that just happen to guys that are getting old, and the world has spent gazillions of dollars so that they can have, for example, an erection when they're 80, but you can't spend time and or money understanding our bodies so that we can have a happier time of it, a more our quality of life just goes down the tubes.
Yeah, and what do you
And it's
think
not,
about
yeah,
the I just did a workshop with a naturopathic doctor who was really talking about how our ability, our confidence can be affected by our ability to experience pleasure. Because if we're not having regular pleasure in our bodies, right? Okay, so you're
yeah,
sick all the time and you have these different symptoms, and then maybe you can't have sex, or when you do, it's painful. And so you start to avoid sex, that really affects your confidence in general. And then you move out into the world a little less confident, a little less joyful.
absolutely. Well, I think it's a crime, and yet it's so easy for us to fall victim of that. This is just what it is. It is what it is. And it's heartbreaking because, I'm not dead yet,
Not at all.
right?
Nowhere
People are
close.
living longer. My mom is 98. She's still with us. Now, she does have Alzheimer's, so she's in major cognitive decline, but, you know, there is still life to be led. And I guess what I'm feeling is sometimes I allow myself to get caught up in the anger of being a woman
Hmm.
in a patriarchal society. And I try to not stay there too long because it doesn't help, right? I
Unless
have
it's
two young,
fire to
I
get
have
you to go, right? Unless you can use it as fire to get you to.
exactly, unless you can use it as the oomph to become more educated, to ask more questions, and to just get to know yourself better. Because here's the thing: we are all half of the world is going through this, and we'll
Mhm.
always go through this because that's the human animal. But we don't have to take it lying down, right? It's 2024, and we do not have to. It is 2024, yeah,
Yeah,
2024.
of
We don't have to take this lying down, and we don't have to be afraid to speak our truth, whether it's
course
about
you.
our bodies
I
or
think
a
women
shame.
sometimes feel ashamed, right? Because I used to be able to at one point I had three different part-time jobs. I had two children, I had two ex-husbands, and I was going to school. And I just managed it all. and I could do it all. And I was tired, but I did it anyway. And now the coffee on the floor, and I'm like, oh my God, I spilled my coffee. You know.
There's so many things that we adopt, narratives that we adopt, I think, that just don't serve us anymore. And even when you think, and I'm speaking of myself, even when I think I've navigated something really well, 2 or 3 months later, something will happen and I've fallen right back automatically into that old habit, whether it's a habit of doing something some way, one way, or a habit of thinking. So it's an ongoing process. Especially when you're the age that we are. We Every day I have to remind myself that I matter. Every day I have to just, yeah, you know what? It's gonna be a great day. This is what I'm grateful for. This is who I am. This is who I want the world to see.
Mhm.
This is what I demand of myself, and this is what I demand of those around me. Um, and that includes my doctor. I remember just, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago, I went in and finally, because I found I was beginning to educate myself on menopause. And I went back to her and I said, I think I want to go on hormone therapy. And
Yeah.
I was preparing for a fight. And she went, okay. And I went, huh? What do you mean, okay? Literally, I was preparing for a fight. And she says, Mahara. So then I said to her, so do you need to take blood? And she goes, why? I'm like, well, just to test that my hormones are off so that you can be okay to prescribe therapy. And she's like, Mahara, you're 57. You're menopausal. I don't need a test to tell
You
me that.
know.
If you want to do hormone therapy, let me share with you what that looks like. And I'm like, okay. But I felt so small. It was just interesting. And so I came home armed with this stuff. And I said to my husband, got this cream. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I'm going to take these pills at night. They're going to help me sleep better. Just you watch. And really, I am much happier today than I was 6 months ago. But I'm a little bit annoyed at myself that I made so many assumptions about not only my body, but my doctor's ability to understand my body. I didn't even give her the chance. And when I finally brought it up, she's like, of course. So interesting.
Yeah, and I want to just say that you're a gift to all of the women in Canada right now, sharing that story.
Oh,
That is a gift to the woman right now who's debating on the fence about maybe should I even ask? I'm not sure if it's safe. I don't know if it would make a difference. It probably wouldn't help me. All of those stories of, because I really feel like because perimenopause, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but it beats the you are beaten down. Okay. So all of those negative thoughts and negative beliefs and fear mongering and all that, which we don't allow in the group, by the way. Like just this last week, I had someone go on canadacancer.ca and they found an article on HRT and they said it causes cancer. So this is a person talking to a lady who's confused and wondering about HRT. And the government of Canada says it causes cancer. So I went onto that page. I did a screenshot of what it actually said. What it actually says is estrogen alone has been linked to causing cancer. Estrogen and progesterone together are safe. Progesterone has never been linked to causing cancer. So look at the page, lady. And to the other one, I put her in jail. Now you can't post or comment. And she hasn't come to me because usually they do come to me and say, why can't I post and comment? Because I want to talk in your group. Hopefully she looked and saw and was like, oh, I'm inadvertently, I do not believe it was malicious, but she's spreading fear and misinformation. So you sharing that you have some regrets. I share that a lot about the antidepressants because for me, I was very much like, I want to go all natural, all natural. It's very important to me, right? Yoga therapy, blah, blah, blah. She wants to go all natural. But then I got to around when I turned 50, I was like, you know what? This just sucks. My anxiety is so much higher and it's about nothing. It's not about a thing that happened. I don't get overwhelmed about a thing. I wake up overwhelmed. This is ridiculous. And I went to my doctor and I said, yeah, I think I'm finally ready. Because for years she was like, Jessica, antidepressant would really help you. Why are you so resistant? Why are you so resistant to getting help? And so she was happy to just kind of, let's try this one. Oh, that one worked okay, but I had some negative side effects. Okay, well, let's try to, oh, that one was terrible. Okay, well, let's maybe try this. And so now I'm on something that's kind of an older style antidepressant. I don't have to wean off of it. It's very helpful for sleep, and it gives me just enough of a bump that I don't have the driving anxiety and I don't have like a panic in the same way. And when the anxiety comes up, it's much more manageable. And so I share that a lot in the group because there is that resistance. And I feel that way too. But when I actually got the thing that worked, I was like, oh man, I could have, you know what I mean? I could have had this for the last 10 years. And instead, I was just white knuckling it.
Ladies, you don't have to white knuckle your life.
Ooh.
You really don't,
No.
right? You may not want to smile and say, bring it on, this is the best thing ever, because that may be absolute bullshit, because it ain't the best thing ever. But there is help out there, whether it's a hard conversation with your doctor or with yourself or with your spouse. Know that there is help out there for you. There are groups, there's things that we can do to navigate this time of life that we're in. And just in general, regardless of whether you're in menopause, perimenopause, if you are not feeling great about something, acknowledge it and then get curious about it, right?
Mhm.
Get curious about it. And here's the thing, you may not be able to fix it yourself. It may not be fixable, but ask questions. Go out and ask for help because there is help in lots of different forms, I believe, out there waiting for you, especially as we live in this day and age of computer and Zoom and connecting with people all over the world. You matter
Mhm.
enough to ask the question,
Yeah,
right? No
absolutely.
matter the question.
Sometimes I'll have people say, well, I have no idea where to start. And I'll say, did you go to the library? And they'll say, what? And I was like, the library is a whole thing, man. Their mandate is to get you information, and they don't care if you're homeless or if you're a millionaire. You can get a librarian who will come with you to the computer and help you search and make sure that you're looking at like actual legitimate medical sourced information and not just someone's opinion on Instagram who will tell you that menopause isn't real or that cats fly. You know, whatever you want to find, you'll find someone saying it. And your librarian, those women and men go into information services because they're smart, they like to read, they usually like to talk, and they usually want to help people. And they're free and they're everywhere. So why not start there and see what they have to say? Because I've a few times been amazed at the kind of help that I got from the librarian. Just incredible. One time I was like, I'm dyslexic and I get really overwhelmed. I'm at the university and the library is huge and the music section is ginormous and I don't even know exactly what I'm looking for. Can you help me? And the librarian said, okay, let's make an appointment. So I came for my appointment and she had already pulled like 6 different resources for me. I think you want this, and this one is probably going to be of interest to you. And I wasn't sure about this one, but I think it could help. And if you look here, it's going to show you other references that we could get. And then all you have to do is ask me. I'll be at the desk and I'll go get it for you. Okay, honey, go ahead, do it. Do good at school. Like, why is anybody suffering through this hair pulling, you know, self-torturous experience of life when there are people that's their job is to help you. And when you start looking, like my father was 93, he had dementia, and he recently passed away in January. And I've been really stuck. Yeah, I was his caregiver, really struggling with that. He was my best friend and my musical mentor. But my doctor was like, I really want you to go and look at this grief therapy. And so she gave me the reference, and I went and I looked, and they were like, we can get you in January. So it's like a whole year after he's passed away. But because I was asking, they were like, oh, you know what? Here's a free resource, and here's an inexpensive resource that goes based on your income level. And you can try these people, and you can try these people. And I got to see a counselor 2 days later. But it's because I was curious and because I have that experience of asking those questions and seeing what's available and trying to advocate for myself in a way where I very much as I can, try and treat my body like it's my best friend. And I'm trying to help myself as much as I can, realizing it would be great if someone came in on a white horse and just did it for me, but
That
that's
doesn't
not going to
that's
happen.
not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Oh my goodness. Jessica, I could sit here and shoot the shit with you all day, right? I really
See?
could.
I
But
love talking.
so do I. I will say, first off, that I'm very sorry for your loss. Grief is, I've had a guest on the show recently who was talking about grief, and it was incredibly powerful. And she ended up discovering that she loves music and she wanted to be a songwriter. And I got to tell the story. So she got curious and took a course on how to write songs. She's in Nashville, or no, she's in Georgia, I think. And so she took this course recent last fall on how to write songs. And the person that was teaching the course looked at her, heard some of her poetry because she used poetry to navigate the grief of losing her mother.
Mm.
And she read some of the poetry to this mentor, and the mentor said, I need to produce you. And she's
Aw.
like, what do you mean by that? And she said, in like, a week or two later, I was in a recording studio in Nashville with 5 professional musicians who made music to my poetry. And I've now released my first speaking poet, like my first poetry album. But it's all around grief and understanding and navigating grief. So magic happens when we let the universe know what we need, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's part of being a badass is number one, recognizing that you matter. Number two, asking for what you think you need. And it may not, even if it doesn't make sense to you, just ask for help, put it out there because you will bring to yourself what you need. The universe is here to help you. And as human beings on this plane of existence, we're here to help each other. Bottom
Oh, I just
line.
love you. I love you already. I mean, like, it's our second conversation ever, but I'm like, yeah, I'm just drowning in so much appreciation for what you're saying because that's incredibly true. I did a workshop once with Jan Arden, and she said, so if you are working on songwriting and you think maybe you have something, but everybody you go to and you share your stuff with, they want to charge you $50,000 to get something on the go, that's an indication that you maybe don't have it, right? That it might not be there. If you have it, people want to work with you. People are going to want to help you. People are going to want to work with you. People are going to be interested. They're going to ask questions and they're be curious about what else you have going on. And that's an indicator that you do have it. And I was so appreciative of that message because, it's really important for me. I mean, as far as like being successful, I haven't sold a million albums and I don't have a buttload of money sitting in my trunk, you know what I mean? But I've helped a lot of women with my songs. I've had a lot of women come to me and say, you know what? That song really got me out of bed. And I listened to it back and forth again and again as many times as I could. And I had one story is that I had my friend in a roommate situation, and one of the roommates got kicked out because she wasn't paying her rent. And as she was leaving, they were like, she's taking more than she brought in. So they actually stopped her and she was stealing my recordings.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I wish you'd just let her take them. I would have given you more. You know what I mean? Because I was like, if she's stealing it, she really needs that
She
message.
really needs it. She needs
No,
that
she
message.
really needs to
Yeah.
hear that she's loved and valued and her opinion does matter and how she feels does matter. And that there is other options than just putting up with a load of crap and
Yeah.
sorry for yourself. And that you're capable. Well, like my first physical trainer said, you're stronger than you think. That's been something that I come back to. That's why I like weight training actually, because I'll be feeling like, oh, my super tired and can't really do anything today. And then I'll have a session with my trainer and be like, I'm picking up a 20-pound weight. That's a 20-pound weight. I'm just kind of throwing
Exactly.
it around. And yeah, it's hard and you sweat, but you're capable of doing that. And then all the anxiety just kind of goes, oh yeah, what was I doing? Nothing, because I'm not serving a purpose here, right?
So true. So true. Well, oh my God, Jessica, we're gonna do this again. Just just saying. I
Yeah,
don't know
I would
when,
love
but
to. I
this
would
is
love to just talk to you anytime, hon. This is brilliant. And then when you share it, I'll be sure to share it on my website and in the group so that because we need ladies who are also kind of like most of us are peri. We need ladies that are in the post section of it saying, that they're still alive, they're still valuable, they're still important, that life still matters, and we need you. We need that message. We need those mentors. We need ladies to look up to, which I look up to.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Folks, check the show notes because everything I have that Jessica shared with me, I'm going to share with you as well because I want you to reach out to her. I would love to get some feedback on this episode. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next week. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to another badass episode. Your support means the world to me. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, share, and rate the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback keeps the badassery flowing. And hey, if you're ready to unleash your inner badass and conquer whatever life throws your way, why not book a complimentary badass breakthrough session? Just click the link in the show notes to schedule your session, and let's kick some serious butt together. Until next time, stay fearless, stay fabulous, and of course, stay badass. This is Mahara signing off.